Could a Pokemon Nuzlocke work as a speedrun? Could a group of gamers who meticulously plan out fights for hours, sometimes days, be able to switch gears and play through a game as fast as possible? Well, my good friend Yami put this question to the test by hosting a hardcore Nuzlocke race of Pokemon Black this past October, a month-long competition to complete a hardcore Nuzlocke of the game with the fastest time possible. But this wasn't just any Nuzlocke race. It was a gift lock. This means rather than the typical method of encountering Pokemon in tall grass, caves, or water, our encounters would instead be gifted to us at set checkpoints. The catch? You only get 11 Pokemon throughout the entire game. Generation 5 has always had a soft spot in my heart, and with my love for problem solving and efficiency, this challenge felt like it was made for me. The gift lock would follow the standard hardcore Nuzlocke rules: permadeath, no items in battle, level caps, and no additional Pokemon may be caught and used, with a few other rules meant to even the playing field that I'll talk about more later. This race included more than 25 well-respected competitors, from some of the best challenge runners in the community to legendary ROM hack developers. I knew the competition would be steep. How far can my game knowledge and passion take me? This is a hardcore gift lock race of Pokemon Black. Yami announced the race ahead of time to set up the entirety of September as a prep month. He provided players with the rules, as well as a text version of all the Pokemon sets to view in the damage calculator, made by yours truly. Basically everything except the actual save file. I figured the best way to plan on how to get through the game the fastest was to look at the community that has been playing this game since its release in 2010. The speedrun community. I started up my own save file and was following along with the current world record speedrun by Skoagogo. He completed the entire game in 3 hours, 9 minutes, and 54 seconds. This run was incredibly helpful. From optimal movement to avoid trainers, helpful tricks for skipping entire sections, to even inspiring some of my battle strategies. So, I periodically watched over the next month any chance I could, taking notes throughout on what trainers are required to be battled. Once I had my notes on which trainers were mandatory, it was time to start looking at the battle matchups and figure out what Pokemon I wanted to run. But a few things did get in the way. September was absolutely jam-packed for me. I started with having my family in town for the first weekend for a wedding. My family then proceeded to stay with us through the next week for another wedding the following weekend. This one may have gotten a bit out of hand. The following weekend was, that's right, you guessed it, another wedding. But this one was down at the beach. We then stayed the rest of the week at the ocean because the last weekend of September was, you didn't guess it, the Ocean's Calling Music Festival, where we saw the likes of All American Rejects, The Killers, and Blink-182. We saw in the absolute downpour that actually flooded the streets, like I was walking in knee-high water going to our car. Anyway, what was the point of all that? Oh yeah, that night, Yami dropped the save file. The race had officially begun. Once I got home, I spent the first few days of the race just watching other runners while I was finishing up my prep for the last few splits. Watching these first attempts made me extremely excited for what this race had in store. Lots of different choices in starters and strategies. But of the strategies I've observed, none seemed as in-depth or as optimized as I felt like my plan was. First attempt. The goal? Learn the ropes of the run and try to mark spots for improvement. Our run begins inside the Pokemon Center of Accumula Town. At this point, we've already chose our starter at our house, completed all the tutorials, and can now access our PC. Before our timer starts, we are allowed to withdraw not only the genetically modified starter, but the corresponding elemental monkey that we would have gotten from the Dream Yard. Our box is full of handcrafted Pokemon that Yami specifically changed to make them all viable at some point throughout the game. We select Tepig with its neutral nature and 31 IVs on every stat. Meaning of all the Tepigs out there, this one is perfect. The fire starter means that we also get Pansage. This mod is incredibly useful throughout the game, being a very good counter to any water, ground, or rock types that may be in our way. Monkey has Vine Whip and Tickle to start. Tickle is a move that lowers the target's attack and defense by 1 stage. This will help create more favorable ranges for us throughout our challenge. But that's not all Yami has given us. Our bag is also home to some crucial items. All the healing items and rare candies you could ever need. This makes trips to the Pokemon Center pretty trivial and a time waste unless you're grabbing extra items or changing your team around. We also got one of each damage reduction berry and elemental gem. And most importantly for our starting strategy, a fire, water, and leaf stone. Before the timer starts, both team members are leveled up to the level cap of 14. This may seem reckless, since if I over level before the gym leader, my Pokemon must be boxed and not used until the next level cap is unlocked. But remember, I've meticulously planned out my EXP management. Timer starts. We immediately use that leaf stone on Pansage. Now on the surface this may seem strange because, well, Simisage doesn't get any level up moves, and we are now stuck with Vine Whip as our primary attack, but I'm okay with this. The increase in base stats is more than enough to make a big impact in these first few splits. Before stepping out of the Pokemon Center, we pop a Repel and remove the white herb item that Tepig is holding. What you need to know for split 1 is that there are 4 important damage ranges we are trying to hit. En's Purloin, the first trainer of Route 2's Patrat, Sharon's Purloin inside the trainer school, and the first trainer of the gym's Lillipup. These are all fights that can be 1 extra turn because the opponent lives on 1 HP. Missing one of these ranges can make the difference of being over 11 minutes or under 10 after completing the gym. There are also 2 particular fights that we switched Tepig in during a battle. This isn't because Simisage is unable to win the matchup, but because the need for XP management to keep us just under the level cap. Once we're in the battle with the gym leader, Cress, the strategy is very simple. Tickle once, and then spam whip until we receive the badge. We are then taken to the Dream House to receive the TM for cut, and we pause our timer. This is another rule of the race. When leveling up, the timer may be paused, but only when you are using rare candies. This can lead to saving a lot of time, especially when you consider the time it takes to learn new moves and evolve. Any other actions we complete during this challenge must be done while the timer is running. We level both our guys up to 19. Tepig evolved and learned Flame Charge and Arm Thrust, which will be very good moves through most of the run. We then go to our TM case and teach Simisage Cut and Pignite Workup. Because of how many Vine Whips we used, an elixir will replenish for the next round of Vine Whip spam until we reach Nakarine City. Here we are met with our second end battle. And while he doesn't risk the chance of losing the challenge, it can be a big time loss depending on how the fight goes. This is due to Pidove having Growl. One Growl will snowball this entire fight and lead to Simisage not having enough attack to deal with TM Pole and potentially leading us to getting confused. And then the Timber out the back will also not be a 2-hit KO after we tickle it. Luckily this attempt, we avoided all that as Pidove used Leer after we hit 1 cut for over half. Ask any runner. Lenora is probably the most RNG dependent gym leader in this entire challenge. Almost every strat requires you to avoid a critical hit takedown from Intimidate Herdier or a boosted Retaliate from Watchhog after you knocked out her lead. We live and die by Arm Thrust here. Somehow I get 2 critical hits on Lenora. She goes for Leer instead of a booster Retaliate, and we win. This strat was very impromptu and would evolve throughout the month. 2 badges in and a pretty good pace. At this point you might be wondering, when do you get your next team member? Well, we've actually had a chance to have another throughout this entire last split. Once the trio gym was defeated, we could have selected a fossil from generations 1, 3, or 4. The 2 that stick out the most here are Cranidos and Shieldon. Both the Sinnoh fossils evolved 3 full splits earlier than the rest. Cranidos has sky-high attack and can really match up well into some difficult gym fights. Shieldon, although is very slow, has the ability Sturdy, making it be able to live any hit on 1 HP as long as it was full health initially. This paired with the move Counter can lead to countering any physical attacker we run into. But there is one fossil that was the reason we have only 2 Pokemon and 2 badges. One strong enough to take out all threats in 1 hit and not be hindered by a load speed stat.
Hey, what the cook? You cooking pizza? What? No! Hey, what is that? What? What? What?
Aerodactyl. Yami knew the pterodactyl would be a popular pick, so he made a few changes to make the player question their choice. To start, he locked Arrow behind Lenora, as long as you did not claim a fossil during her split. Additionally, this arrow is shiny and has the ability Pressure. This means every time Arrow gets sent into battle, the shiny and pressure animations will pop up, making it a small time loss for every battle that Arrow comes to. However, I didn't see it that way. I figured if Arrow was going to be faster and OHKO the opponent, we would not see a move from our target and avoid the chance of getting status or our damage reduced. The battles would end in a half a turn versus a full turn with each Pokemon getting a turn to attack. But Aerodactyl will have to wait a bit longer to join the team. We stop by the Pokemon Center and drop off Simisage to implement a time save. When you only have one Pokemon in your party, double battle trainers can be avoided, meaning we can bypass these twins in the forest. This is actually the second double battle that you run into in the game, but the first fight makes it mandatory to have two Pokemon before proceeding. I figured this out because I was planning on implementing this strat on them. My first time through Pinwell Forest wasn't the best. We ran into an optional trainer, and because of this, EXP was going to be really tight for the level cap. We are going to need to adapt. Actually, we run into two optionals, but one is the only non-mandatory fight that I'm going out of my way to take this entire challenge. This Pokemon Ranger with her Pansear can help Simisage reach its max potential. She gatekeeps the TM for Grass Knot, taking opponent's weight into account for damage, plus the same type attack boost. This TM is why we are able to evolve Simisage so early. Miracle Seed will also be a good help. Once we arrive in Castelia City, we make a pit stop at the Pokemon Center and finally get Simisage and Aerodactyl on the team. We put the EXP share on Simisage just so we can avoid overleveling Pignite. Berg's team was one I wasn't really concerned with. Fire-type starter versus the Bug-type gym leader, that seems like a no-brainer. But getting poisoned from the lead Venipede or sand attacked from Dwebble could set up for an unfortunate battle where we just get stalled out by Lavani with Protect. Luckily, Pignite is a beast and can easily sweep this fight with the right strategy. Not this strategy. Turns out relying purely on arm thrust for Dwebble isn't the most reliable thing to do. Once we obtained the insect badge, we opened up opportunities to get more team members. But the Pokemon Center is really out of the way, so let's just highlight the remaining encounters we can get. We just unlocked Golett from beating Berg, and we arrived in Castelia, Zorua became available. Sharon on Route 4 gatekeeps the Unovian fossils. Then it's only gym leaders that unlock the rest. Elisa will reward us with Gyarados, Clay with Cubchoo, Skyla with Scraggy and Larvesta, and Bryson with Pidove. Going north to the Route 4 gate, we have a battle with Bianca, shortly followed by another Sharon fight. These aren't scary fights, but can be a bit of a time waster. Yawn, Muna, and Pansear on each of their respective teams can lead us to needing to go into our bag and heal after each battle. Once we arrive in Nimbasa City, after beating some grunts, we get 2 of our 3 available encounters, because at this point, I'm oblivious to the power that's in my box. After bringing the new additions up to the level cap, we teach Return to Arrow and Simisage that we just picked up inside the Pokemon Center. Here we find ourselves in a battle with N, and we face a really unfortunate situation. After taking out the lead Sandile with Pignite, Sigilif comes out next. Now let's talk a little bit about the AI move mechanics, since this is an educational channel anyway. Sigilif's move choices are between Psybeam, Air Cutter, and Tailwind. Psybeam is the clear highest damage move except for one single roll of Air Cutter. However, Air Cutter is a high crit move, so the game will roll a random number, and Air Cutter is about a 1 in 8 chance to happen. And ideally, we want to see Tailwind or Psybeam here, because on our switch to Zorua, we would have the immunity, and the illusion ability really confuses the AI. Sigilith comes in, so we pivot into our boy Himothy. Air Cutter's a little not good here, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because of that. Okay. Let's go into you then. Yeah, because you're not taking any more HP. Okay, that's decent damage, but that should be fine. Side beam's fine. No confusion, please. 2 crits end up leading us to losing Golett. And even though losing 1 Mon in a Nuzlocke doesn't equal a reset, Golurk is essential to our endgame strategy. We have to chalk up attempt 1. Just after my first attempt, we saw a few runners complete their race successfully. Fall Into Gaming was the first to finish with a time of 5 hours and 23 minutes. Interestingly enough, he chose Oshawott and Panseer, as well as Cradilly for his fossil. This first run submission only lasted a short while though. On October 5th, legendary ROM hacker Drayano finished his first attempt and lowered the time significantly. 4 hours and 32 minutes. Dre's game knowledge was on full display. He was using strategies that weren't even on my radar. Now I really wanted to finish an attempt, just to see where my pace would be at. We started attempt 2 off well, despite losing some time on the end fight prior to Lenora. After avoiding the optional in Pinwheel Forest, we find ourselves back at the Ferris wheel. This time the end battle is the much more likely timeline, and we move on to try to get our 4th badge. The roller coaster gym is Arrow and Golett's playground. Between Aerodactyl just being strong enough to OHKO all the gym trainers' teams, and Golett's electric type immunity, however, Elisa does have a bit of RNG to her fight. Without a damage boosting item, Emolga has an 80% chance to fall to Smackdown from Aerodactyl. Luckily for us, Smackdown does the job. But what about the second Emolga? This entire split we were focused on getting Arrow just enough XP to level after beating the lead Emolga. Once we level up, the second Emolga is a guaranteed OHKO. This is when Zebstrika comes in. We pivot to Golett on the electric move, and our bulky boy with soft sand can do big damage with magnitude? I really like the gamble on this move. It's pretty unlikely for us to lose, and we just need a magnitude 8 or higher to OHKO. Badge 4 obtained. With our new raised level cap, we can evolve Zorua into Zork. Another Sharon battle with pivoting into more favorable matchups lead us to the cold storage. This is home to the hardest optional trainer to dodge in my opinion. This evil demon of a worker. Lucky for this attempt, we managed to avoid all of them, and Pig Knight helps clean up all the grunts, and we reward ourselves with the Nevermelt Ice. Clay's gym is pretty easy honestly. We finally get to highlight the importance of Grass Knot on Semi-Sage. Just sweeping through the trainers before finding us face to face with Clay. Grass Knot is enough to take down Croc before Excadrill comes in. We set up 2 tickles to lower the attack and defense before we switch in Golett. And Magnitude is here to win again, baby! After that is Palpitoad. We then pivot one more time back to Semi-Sage for Grass Knot to claim our next badge. We are on a really good pace at this point. The fastest pace yet by any of the runners. After healing, we leave the gym and run right into a battle with Bianca. Just another standard battle of pivoting around until we win. She gives us Fly, which we immediately teach to Arrow. Route 6 and Chargestone Cave have the largest section of optionals to avoid. We did run into one of them on Route 6, but they only had a single Deerling, so not too bad. Once we navigate Chargestone Cave, we can just arm thrust our way through most of the grunts and then face N at the end. We use Semi-Sage to lead against the Boldore, and Golett with Bulldoze to finish the rest. The Stroughton City is home to a little detour I like to take. The Move House. The Move House can be very useful by unlocking some really crazy moves. We start by removing Cut on Semi-Sage because there is only one single instance where that move is necessary for this entire story. After that, we teach Aerodactyl Thunderfang. This will be shown off soon. Semi-Sage can finally have Seed Bomb after long last. And finally, Hone Claws on Zoroark. We must head to Celestial Tower, but before then, we have some item management we must take care of. In the world record speedrun, players will pop a repel before the Route 7 grass, and can make it all the way to the top of the tower without needing a second one. We also put the muscle band item that Gyarados was originally holding onto Aerodactyl, who just needs slightly more power this split. The trainers inside the tower act very interesting. With every B press, you can force the NPCs to spin one rotation. And these rotations aren't random. They are a consistent movement pattern that can be manipulated to make it through much faster. We do mess up our movement throughout and pay for it with an encounter we run into, and a second repel must be popped. Once at the top of the tower, we fly back to Mistralton and we head straight to the gym. This is yet another area where time can be lost depending on RNG. This is because of Tranquil and Unpheasant. They all come equipped with Detect, and if you happen to miss a range, you're just rolling the dice to lose even more time. We start the gym off with a double protect on the initial trainer, but somehow manage to avoid everything else afterwards. The strategy for the fight with Skyla is actually set up on the last gym trainer. Aerodactyl gains too much experience to take on the last swoop out of the gym, so we pivot Zoroark to the lead. This is so we can Night Slash to Oko. Skyla also happens to lead with a swoop bat, so we can just use that same strategy before Unpheasant comes in. We then switch to Aerodactyl to use Smackdown. But this puts her into heal range, so I end up using 2 Thunderfangs to KO. And the real reason we picked up Thunderfang was to take out the Ace Swanna with a single move. 208 Skyla. Post Skyla, we make another pit stop to the PC to move some team members around. Cubchoo for Zoroark, and Scraggy for Gyarados. We then head back towards the tall grass to level up our team for the new level cap. But I'm not sold. Yes, okay, yes, it is supposed to be 36. I'm like 90% sure. After 3 new evolutions, we head to take on Sharon. Giving Beartic his debut, we lead on Sharon's Unpheasant while in the hail. Arrow then comes in for Semisear, our Elemental Monkey takes out Duat, and Emboar finishes the Liepard out the back. I mentioned earlier in the video that this event took place in the month of October, and the real hardcore fans of Pokemon Black and White might see snow on Route 7 and the entrance to Twist Mountain and think, that's not possible. This is because of seasons. Each month begins the next season in the cycle, and October just happens to be a summer month. Well, this is one of the main strats that I adapted from the speedrun community. If you adjust your game time to be played on a winter month, Twist Mountain practically becomes optional. There are no trainers to avoid, and you only go into the central area and enter back to the final stretch to the exit. I cleared the entirety of Twist Mountain in 1 minute and 15 seconds. This is compared to the 4 minutes and 48 seconds that Drayano had, which included 2 trainer battles. Emboar gets moved to the starting position and really gets highlighted from here on out. With a newly taught Brick Break from the Pokemon Center in Icarus City, we head straight into the Ice Gym. But like so many other gyms before, we can be slowed down by one small, sick bear. Cubchoo has Endure, and even multi-hit moves like Arm Thrust will still leave the Snotsicle on 1 HP. Somehow this attempt, we encountered not a single Endure. Implemented another skip learned from the speedrun community to ignore the last ice puzzle trainer before we find ourselves facing the gym leader Bryson. I spent a long time trying to solve this fight, specifically the Cryogonal out the back. We are slower and don't want this fight to go on any more than just 3 turns, and I found with the Black Belt and starting with a Flame Charge against the lead Snow Cone, we have a 40% chance to Oko the Beartic, and then having a clean final matchup with Cryo. This is exactly what happened, to my surprise. I'm pumped. My time is looking super solid going into these final splits. We are rewarded post-gym with the split that has the most trainer battles. We have to fight Team Plasma in Dragon Spiral, Relic Passage, Bianca before the last gym, and every single trainer in the Opelucid City gym. Emboar remains our guy, and this section is a big reason why I chose the pig as our starter. Firefighting with a decent speed stat and big damage can lead to sweeping every plasma grunt we run into. We see a combo of Watchhogs, Liepards, Scraggies, Crocrocs, Trubbish, and Garbodors. Only the literal toxic waste garbage can slow Emboar's rampage, but Bulldoze can at least 2-hit the evolutions. A little more story and flying around later, we are headed to the icy pass of Route 8, where the last fight with Bianca is. She leads with an Intimidate Stoutland, and to call back to the very beginning of the run, we return the White Herb to Emboar to make quick work of the lead. And by quick work, I mean I kept knocking it into heal range and waste Bianca's potions in a bit of a cycle. We have a monkey mirror matchup, and then Superior comes in and hits a coil, raising its attack and defense. This can get very scary, but luckily I dodged a crit. Musharna comes out last, and any dark type can solo with ease. With all of our Pokemon unlocked up to this point, Gyarados is a great partner in crime to our Beartic for the Dragon Gym. Intimidate Gyara is the best way to deal with veteran Hugo's Druddigon, when they have revenge to threaten our Ice type with a crit. After forgetting to lead with our bear on the first trainer of the gym, we make slight work of the rest of the gym trainers. Beartic with Never Melt Ice, Gyarados with EXP share to allow for less switching. The last gym badge is in our sights. Drayden's AI is interesting. He loves to set up Dragon Dance and then spam negative priority moves in Revenge and Dragon Tail. Fracture is an Oko with Ice Punch just after it sets up a Dragon Dance. Druddigon comes in next, and just like veteran Hugo, we pivot into Gyarados. This fight gets derailed rather quickly after a Hyper Potion is used, and the Rough Skin plus chip away damage brings us to low HP. We then try to switch Beartic back in, and immediately get sent back out into Emboar randomly due to Dragon Tail. Eventually we do get Beartic in to actually pick up the frag. When Haxorus finally comes in, we see one more potion and Dragon Dance before we hit the 43% range to get our final gym badge. On to the league. We bring our whole team to the level cap of 50. This can be pretty ballsy with the risk of overleveling, meaning losing an Elite 4 member. However, I only have half of my E4 team on me, and something to know for the Victory Road split, we only have 2 mandatory battles, the final Sharon battle and Ace Trainer Shanta in the VR. Despite that, there are some very challenging trainer skips, and because this is the last area before the league, some of these trainers can have 3 Pokemon that have synergy and will require you to make a lot of switches to avoid losing a Mon.
Ew. I don't have switch-ins. I think I have to take one. I think I have to fucking take one. You better not have Earthquake. No, 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 no. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. No, 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 no! It was a crit! What am I playing?
The final Sharon battle isn't quite as intimidating as the last Bianca battle, although just like all the Sharon fights before, maneuvering through the battle, putting ourselves in a favorable matchup is the best strategy. Once in Victory Road, I think I saw every single runner at this point run into Ace Trainer Dwayne. Just a 2 Pokemon trainer that requires 2 separate dodges. We, of course, met him for the first time too. When we arrive at the league, we make one last Pokemon Center stop to gather our Elite 4 team members. We have our starters in Emboar and Simisage, Golurk, and our new additions. Zoroark returns to the team for some very nice illusion shenanigans. Our all-powerful Unovian fossil Archeops, who solos an entire battle thanks to our final member, Bug the Larvesta, who will stay at level 36. Once everyone's at 50, and we equipped a Koba Berry to Emboar, we enter the league to take on our last 6 battles. First up, Caitlyn. With Zoroark in the lead and Emboar at the back of our party, we are able to set up the illusion that our fighting type is in our lead. Caitlyn will spam Psychic on us with no effect. With 2 Hone Claws set up, we can get a full sweep of her team. Chantel is a pretty similar strategy, except for some reason, Cofagrigus can still Will-O-Wisp us, even though we are cosplaying as a fire type. This is why we've kept Taunt for exactly this. Between Taunt and Hone Claws, we have enough attack to Oko through our second member. Now let's show off Archeops. Marshall's entire team just gets Oko'd from no item, Defeatus, Acrobatics. Having said that, one thing does get in the way of this. Sturdy Sock. Not that Sturdy Sock. We would bring him down to 1 HP thanks to his ability, and could catch a Stone Edge to the face and lose our strongest Mon for the rest of the challenge. This is where Larvesta is our savior. You turn into the Bug, Bug gets smushed by rocks, and then right back into Archeops to resume his carnage. Grimsley plays out more like a traditional battle. We could still lead Archeops to Oko the Scrafty lead before U-turning into Embor with Koba Berry, so that Aerial Ace doesn't ruin our day. Crocodile wants to come in and outspeed Embor, but Simisage has something to say about that. Liepard is last out, and Archeops comes back in to show off its power once again. 2 more fights, and at this point I'm almost a full hour faster than when Draiano completed his run earlier today. Some of you may not know, but there's actually a PC you can access prior to the back-to-back final battles. Normally, I wouldn't consider these fights an additional level cap, but Yami decided to allow a jump to 54 for the last battles. Joining our team, Gyarados and Scrafty for Zoroark and Bug, Black Belt on Embor, Akaberry on Simisage, and then Ground Gem on Golurk, Rock Gem on Archeops, Fighting Gem on Scrafty, and then finally Ice Gem on Gyarados. These back-to-back teams are brutal. And of course with his Zekrom lead. And we only have one Mon that matches up well. The Mon that made us reset our first run when it fell to a previous end battle, Golurk. The Ground Gem gives us just enough damage with Earthquake to knock out the legendary. Vanillix comes in next, seeing rolls with Blizzard. So we go into Embor. We want to avoid Freeze here. Perfect. The next thing we want to see is Hail, which we do. Brick Break breaks through the light screen and picks up the KO to bring in Caracosta. We then send in Simisage for the preferred matchup and to take a waterfall. Costa has Sturdy, which is exactly why we wanted Hail from the Ice Cream Cone. And now any grass move is plenty damage, and Zoroark disguised as Klinklang comes in. After some pivots to get Embor to switch in not on a Focus Blast, we can be out of crit range and Brick Break can lead us to the real Klinklang. Scrafty with a Fighting Gem is more than enough to get us the last Mon of the battle. I then decide to sack him in order to get our own Archeops in with a Rock Gem, Ancient Power to get a guaranteed KO. Ghetsis honestly has the much scarier team despite not having a legendary. Golurk 1v1s the Koffagrigus despite getting toxicked. Seismitoad comes in, and Simisage knows all about the Mons 4 times weak to grass. We do get our accuracy dropped, but Caesar has that vision. Hydreigon comes in, and we sack Simisage before bringing in Gyarados. We set up a Dragon Dance to outspeed an Oko. We just have to hit this 95% accurate Ice Fang. At this point, we have a 4v3. We just have to trade Mons back and forth, and we can win. Bouffalant is next, and we do some chip with Ice Fang before Embor comes out into Brick Break. Electros threatens with Wild Charge. So in comes our ground type. We actually get a very unlucky crit here, putting him in heal range, and another Shadow Punch brings it to around 60% health. We then bring Embor back in, and Brick Break brings it into red health when we should be able to Brick Break and then finish it off. Don't kill me with Acro. Don't do it. A critical hit leaves us with 1 Pokemon remaining. Archeop comes in for the revenge kill, but the final Mon Bisharp is a hard counter for us. And in our tilted headspace, we use U-turn, with our only remaining team member being one that we sacrificed just one battle prior. I was at a sub 4 hour pace. I had the win in my hand. Had I just went Archeops instead of Embor after Golurk died, we would have been able to use Acro for the KO, U-turn into Embor, and outspeed and win with a Brick Break. I'm heartbroken. I was so much faster than everyone I've watched, and not to be egotistical, but I was worried about others stealing my strategy and perfecting it better than I could. But this is no time to worry about that. I know what I came up with, and that the win was possible with a sub 4 hour run. A few days later, we are back at the beginning trying to get a run off the ground. My first run of the day had the most clutch Lenora fight I've seen yet. But we completely misclicked and taught over Tickle on Simisage just before Elisa. Reset. Run into an optional on Split 2. Reset. Lose Pignite to Lenora. Reset. We have to have an infinite mental for a challenge like this. We've been going for 2.5 hours this session. It's time to lock in. We get our best split one yet. Lenora, we changed our strat to pivot through Semi-Sage on Watchhog Retaliate, and then back to Pig Knight, who is holding a Chesto. PB on Lenora. We do lose a bit of time on Berg due to Sand Attack Dwebble and running into an optional trainer in Pinwheel Forest. But just before the Ferris Wheel and Elisa's Gym, I finally gave Archon the respect it deserves and added it to the team. I very briefly highlighted what makes Archeops so good for the Elite Four, but the viability for Archon starts as soon as you gain access to it. When I was hyping up Aerodactyl earlier, I mentioned its attack and speed. While as an uninvolved Pokemon, Archon already has more attack than Aero. And in all of Unova, there's only 7 Pokemon with a higher base speed stat than Archeops. However, with the combination of level caps and a very generous Jolly nature, this flying chicken fossil is only 6 speed slower than our Aerodactyl is. N and Elisa go smoothly once again. Even though we are 1 minute slower than our PB run, this feels good. It's time to go fast. Archon can fully sweep this Sharon fight, on one condition. The lead Liepard has Torment. If he uses that, spamming Acrobatics is not an option. Especially when faced with Duat second after KOing the lead, I would never risk Archon at this point in the game. We clear the cold storage once again without a single optional and make one new pit stop to grab the Expert Belt in the market just inside a Drift Veil. This is going to show useful on a few Pokemon starting next split. Clay is the exact same strat without issue. We run into an optional on our way to Chargestone, and our next difference in the run is the Plasma Gruts. Archon gets bulldozed for the few poison types we run into, mainly to save Acrobatic PB. We use Semi-Sage for the last grunt and N, but this time we still use Pig Knight for the rest. Next, outside the tall grass, we use another Repel and equip Expert Belt to Aerodactyl. This extra damage creates a little bit better Oko's opportunities inside the tower and the gym. We finished Skylo just over the 2-hour mark and almost 6 minutes faster than our PB. But being almost 5 hours deep in the stream, this run will have to wait for another day to finish. 2 days later, on October 10th, we return to our run. However, something is different. There's a new runner to submit their run. Not just any run, the fastest yet. 4 hours and 5 minutes. This was faster than Drayano by 27 minutes. The runner's name is Monet. He spent the first part of the month just doing prep for the event, running through the game and making notes at each fight, and meticulously planning his team until he was confident enough to start running just a day or two before. His submitted time was around the time that I was on pace for when I lost to Getsis. I knew this run was already going to be better than that. I just needed to execute. I'm getting critted. I'm getting crit. 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 Slash is annoying. Don't crit me. It did crit me. Do I go for it? I'm going for it. I don't give a shit. Oh my god. Oh, double freeze on Drayden. Let's go. After defeating Drayden, we find ourselves just above 3 hours and with over 9 minutes saved to our best run. This is a big thanks to Archeops, who makes faster work of the grunts in Relic Castle compared to Embor. Unfortunately, we did lose some time due to running into 2 optionals just prior to the league. We then execute the same Elite Four strategy and are faced with the last 2 trainers. This time, we are much more prepared no matter the situation. N was a little closer due to Embor switching in on a blizzard from Vanillux. This leads to us being in crit range for a focus blast, which we avoided. One more battle. Finish the fight and claim first place. The fight ended up coming down to the same 2v2, Archeops and Embor versus Electric and Bisharp. My previous attempt taught me to utilize Archeops first and clean up with our one Pokemon that's been with us since the beginning. I've done it. First place, 3 hours and 48 minutes. And just 3 hours after Monet submitted his best run. I took the next 10 days off from the race. Of course, the same can't be said for Monet. He wasn't happy that he took his crown, just hours after he completed his first run. He wasn't going to be complacent like I was. He was going to do everything in his power to take back first place. And on the 20th, he completed a run in 3 hours and 44 minutes. Then the next day, submitted a run at 3 hours and 35 minutes. This is what I'm talking about. Competition at its finest. One person challenging the capabilities and pushing others to be the best that they can. I wasn't upset about getting knocked out of the lead. I knew this meant I must buckle down and continue to optimize and make up for lost time. We returned on the 22nd, trying to get a run past the second gym, and we get a pace that is already a couple minutes faster than Monet's. But I made a grave mistake inside cold storage. Oh, I forgot the Nevermelt Ice. Oh my god, you're right. Oh, I gotta do the trainer dodges again. Oh no. Let's see, punish. Go away, please. Fucking punish, bro. So goddamn punished. This run went all the way to Getsis, where we unfortunately got cut short. But regardless, we made too many mistakes through the run and was unable to get the record. I knew my days of the competition were numbered, so after failing, I immediately started up another attempt. .130 post Clay. This could be it. But I know Monet's endgame is a lot cleaner than mine, so I know I'll have to make up as much time in the mid game. But for now, sleep. When watching speedrunners in this game, you'll notice how efficient their trainer dodging and overall movement allows them to just fly past optionals and from dialogue to dialogue. I, since Monet beating me, have been really focused on my trainer dodging and bike movement to decrease my time. This is really relevant for 3 sections: Route 6, the Return to Relic Castle, and Victory Road. These sections have a ton of optionals, so slower is safer, but fast is the only way I can push the limits of this challenge. As I started my stream, I was immediately met with the first of the 3 sections. And over the next 2 hours of my run, I was going to need to conquer them all. For simplicity's sake, there are 3 types of trainer dodges in Gen 5. Spinners run on a 16 frame system. A spinner will spin every 16 to 64 frames. However, they can still choose the direction they are already facing, so this timer can seem a little wrong at times. The first type of skip, I'm calling standard bag manip. To pull this off, you'll position yourself 2 tiles away from the line of sight of the spinner. Once the spinner moves in a direction that is safe, you move forward 1 tile and flash your bag. If the trainer did not spin, you just reset the trainer's spin frame, and can then proceed past them. In the cold storage, there is this stupid trainer that is very challenging to dodge. That's because we don't have the 2 tile buffer before the trainer's line of sight. So in this area, we must execute a quarter turn and menu buffer to manip the spin. This is the manip I'm least practiced with. The last manip, and probably the most used, is the bike manip. You can be on the tile prior to the spinner. Once the spinner spins away, hopping on your bike acts like the menu buffer, but is much faster to initiate your movement past the trainer. These 3 are huge parts of me getting my fastest run yet, going into the E4. I also changed some of my strats throughout the run. Archie-Apps can fully sweep the chair in battle that's right before Twist Mountain, instead of using a lot of my party to counter each switching. Our Dragon fight is also now a bit different. Because of the negative priority moves, we can actually utilize Scrafty with the Never Melt Ice, Ice Punch, and Workup. At +1, we can sweep thanks to our Moxie ability, gaining us an attack boost with each frag. We also grab our Elite 4 team just after defeating Drayden to save us a little time once we get to the Elite 4. And throughout our entire run, we only ran into 1 singular optional. We just have the league once again. We did it. 3 hours and 32 minutes. This run was insanely lucky at certain points, but my dedication to improving and optimizing my strategies led me to the finish that I wanted. With less than a week left, I knew this time was going to be difficult to beat. Monet would keep doing attempts over the next few days, and so did I, just to improve where I could be. But I just couldn't get anything faster. I would lose too much time early that would not allow me enough time to finish the attempt any faster. After my attempts on the 29th continuously getting reset, I decided to end stream and be content with my submission.
Fucking beautiful. What?
We need to dissect this run to understand what we are up against. Monet had some very optimal strats. He begins his run with the same strat as us, with Semi-Sage and Tepig, missing only one range in Split 1, but the biggest change is fully switching Tepig to solo Bianca. Split 2 is a different story. Monet picks up Craniados in the Dream House, and this is a huge advantage for Lenora's split. Craniados can one-hit all of the grunts and the end fight that was giving me so much issues with consistency. Lenora is a little different too. Pignite holds the white herb to counter the lead Intimidate, proceeds to set up 2 workups before Flame Charge takes out Herdier. Arm Thrust needs to be 3-hit to take down Watchog. Sub 29 Lenora is uncharted territory for any runner at this point. He also deposits all his Mon at this point, a strat that he notes learning from me, but he uses his Fossil to sweep through the forest. This is more optimal on the optional Ranger, blocking Grass Knot. The rest of Berg Split is pretty similar, with Craniados having the spotlight compared to Pignite, but Pignite still cleans up the Lavani on Berg. Route 4 is a danger zone for Monet, who goes and makes a detour to get the Dig TM prior to Elisa. This detour results in an optional battle. Elisa's gym is basically Arrow and Golett, but instead, Cran and Golett. This is where Dig comes in handy. After using Smackdown on one Emolga before a Volt Switch, the second comes in. Monet uses Dig, knowing that Volt Switch will bring Zebstrika in, and gets O-Code immediately. Golett then can clean up the remaining Emolga. He's 4 minutes faster than PB at this point. Play Split is very similar up to the gym battle itself. Monet does get the best case scenario on the Sharon fight with a clean Arch and Sweep. All of Ice storage trainers are avoided, and Simi-Sage still has Vine Whip for the gym. This makes Drillbur a very favorable range to Oko versus 2-shotting with Grass Knot. Then the Clay fight. Thanks to picking up Dig earlier, Monet also taught this to Simi-Sage. Dig can 2-hit and kill Excadrill. This allows for a full Simi-Sage sweep to put him almost 6 minutes faster than the PB. Gotta calm down. The next notable difference is Monet avoids the move relearner entirely and just heads straight to the tower. He evolves Archeops while overleveling it since it won't be used anymore this split. This is so he can teach it Fly to get back to Castelia faster. But before that, he makes a pit stop, somewhere I haven't touched in any of my runs. Our hometown. This is to stop and visit with the professor. With Yami completing our Pokedex for us, we were able to get the TMs for Protect, Ball Swipe, and most importantly, Hidden Power. This is for an endgame strategy. After flying back to Castelia, quickly pivoting Golett for Gyarados, plus a few items, Craniados is here to go crazy in Skyla's gym, sweeping all the trainers and even most of Skyla after avoiding a crit Bubble Beam before switching in Gyarados to finish the battle. Twist Mountain is another really notable difference. I completely bypassed the entire area, but Monet has another TM he wants to get. Buried deep in the mountain, guarded by an optional that you have to avoid twice, is a move that a lot of Nuzlockers banned from their run. Substitute. Monet of course makes a clean pass and grabs the item before completing the Ice Gym, with the same Ambor strats as me. Despite him running into not 1, not 2, but 5 Endures. Gym 8 split is almost identical with most of our strats with slight variations on the final Bianca fight. He also risks another crit against the Demon Druddigon that veteran Hugo has, but nonetheless he makes it out with another gold split. And I just want to point this out because I'm unsure if even Monet knows this. The gold splits are times that are the fastest you've completed for that section of the game. Meaning Monet had a PB in every section of this game outside of Elisa, where he ran into an optional, and Skyla, where he notes having some of the worst optimization of his run. He runs into one last optional prior to Victory Road. Now it's time for his final 6 battles. For the most part, the Elite Four itself is very similar to my strategy, with one exception. With acquiring Hidden Power earlier, Zorua has Hidden Power Dark, making for a lot of damage going into the Ghost and Psychic trainers. But why is it still a Zorua? This is because at level 49, it learns Nasty Plot. This allows you to set up once to sweep with HP Dark and avoid the Flame Body chance that Chandelure has. Last 2 battles and the largest of the time saves for the endgame. Monet's Elite Four team is also his back-to-back team. With Gyarados lead, he switches in Archeops to sack. This is so Zoroark, disguised as Emboar, can come in safely. Agility plus getting to +6 with Nasty Plot allows Hidden Power Dark to sweep the whole team. Kind of. He does take Kling Klang down into healing range, and while breaking Caracasa's Sturdy, dodging another crit, but he comes out victorious in the end. Getsis shows off why the Twist Mountain detour is so important. Gyarados is able to set up a substitute, baiting Toxic and slowly setting up Dragon Dances to +4. After that, Aqua Tail and Ice Fang can sweep the entire fight, with only a 1% chance of missing thanks to the wide lens. Sub 330 was achieved. This run was insane, and I'm out of time. All this work I've put in the last 2 months. Is it all just to fall short on the final days? I knew I at least had to try, but I was going to have to do more than just avoid the one optional I ran into on my 332 run. I was going to need to go back to the drawing board in order to make up for over 6 minutes of time. Well, actually, it was determined that Monet's time was a bit off. Monet was under the impression that when changing his party around the PC, that the timer didn't have to be running. This was a miscommunication with Yami, but Yami determined that the actual time for Monet's was 3 hours, 29 minutes, and 14 seconds. Beating this was possible, but was still going to be a lot of work. On Halloween, I rushed home from work with such determination to get first place back. I had some new strats and a few hours to mess around with, where I could afford to reset and still have time to complete a full run. Once the clock hit midnight, even active runs are going to be considered incomplete. I started with only trying to get a perfect split one, not missing any of the 4 ranges to get the best time possible. I also began to try the Tepig switch for Bianca to save XP and time, and I even added the normal gem to guarantee an OHKO on the lead Lillipup with Tackle to save more time. This worked just as I wanted, matching Monet's split one time. Lenora's split was pretty similar, but I was so determined that I reset because my run wasn't a sub 30 on Lenora. In fact, I reset a bunch. This isn't really going quite the way I was planning. I needed to go make dinner for my wife and I, and when I come back, there's only 5 hours till midnight. At this point, I can run something to Elisa before resetting, but anything past that will have to be my final run. Split 1, the cleanest I've ever had. Split 2, not so much. Oh my god, okay, hold on. The Sea Gear lost me around 12 seconds. And this doesn't seem like a lot, but when I'm trying to be as optimal as possible, this is a big drop. I had a new impromptu strat to try this split, so I at least wanted to see if that would work before stopping. I figured out that experience-wise, you can level up Simisage after the double battle to 20 and still be fine for the rest of the split. This level up allows us to hit a previously 1 in 16 range on Sharon's Purloin. We are rewarded with a sub 30 Lenora. And that was my goal at this point. Might as well see my Berg split out too. During this point of the stream, many of the competitors were stopping into the stream and hanging out. We chatted about strategies and time saves that us as a community continually push the limits of. At this point, I was just so happy with the amount of work that I did for this challenge and was having such a good time just talking with my peers. Berg split went okay. Not great, but not too bad either. I'm torn on what I should do. Do I reset now? I end up just running to at least Elisa because that's where I said I could reset with enough time for another run. I mean, just listen to how confident I am. Yeah, I'm so stuck. Like, I've messed up a bunch too, but I've also got a crit on one of the trainers. Like, I don't know. We had a new Bianca strat. Pig Knight uses work up on her dear lead with wise glasses and can net us a clean sweep. We also have a new end strat. Leading with Archon can get us 2 frags before Sigilif comes in. Then a pivot into Zorua and we can finish off N. And we get the first cycle coaster in the gym. Is this it? Do I have a chance? We just had an insane Elisa split. We're faster than Monet was at this point. I made my decision. This will be my last run of the competition. And right after I made that decision, I overleveled my Pig Knight. This is okay because I'll just slap an EXP share on Golett and use Archon as much as I can. I also found a new strategy where I could delay Zorua. My Sharon fight was not as kind to me due to me getting tormented on the first turn. We did have a clean cold storage before heading into Clay's gym. And this time we also kept Vine Whip on Simi Sage to deal with the drill burrs a little bit better. I do stress a bit about EXP management and pivot out on the last trainer, but if anyone's got me, it's Archon. A few mistakes did lead us to that split falling a few minutes behind. However, I still had some tricks up my sleeves to save time. Like clean movement on the bike. So I gotta be slick with it. We still are making a visit to the move house, but this time we are only going to teach Arrow of Thunderfang, even though I fumbled hard and misclicked twice. We then run all the way to Skyla without switching Arrow out, thanks to having the EXP share on Golett. After avoiding all the detects from the Unpheasant line, we are starting to bring this back. I actually made up time on that split. Maybe it's not Jover. We then intentionally overleveled Archon in the next gym to save experience on Embor, since I put him all the way to the level cap. 1 endure later, I'm at Bryson. We end up leaving Vanillish on 1 HP, which loses us some time, but we close the gap significantly. My movement is what I need to put me over the top. And after Drayden, I closed the gap even more. And to be honest, it's a lot closer than it seems. Remember, the time that I have at the bottom of the screen is the unchanged time. Victory could be within my grasp until this happened. And pause. ER split.
Triano says didn't pause.
Oh no. I forgot to pause the timer when leveling up. I wasted 53 seconds of time. I'm in disbelief. Not once throughout my entire time running did I forget to pause the timer. Either the hotkey did not register with my button press, or maybe I missed it entirely. I knew my run was close, but I fear that even a mistake of less than a minute would be enough to put this comeback out of reach. But now is not a time to worry. I need to get to the end of the game before I can even consider these what-if scenarios. Before we left the Pokemon Center, we completed the delay for Zoroark and taught it Nasty Plot and Shadow Ball, which we picked up earlier. This team that I have with me was going straight into the league as soon as we get there. No more Pokemon Centers. But first, we have our final rival battle and the Victory Road to traverse. As we get ready to enter the Elite Four, let's just check where Monet is. Wait, he's still in Victory Road? Maybe I do have a real shot at this. But I need to keep the pedal down because I already know that he has a much faster N and gets his fight than I do. 2.5 minutes ahead of Monet when completing the Elite Four. I have to stop at the PC quickly and then hope my N and gets this goes well. Zekrom goes down normally, but the Vanillix doesn't set up hail this time. Simisage is going to have to land 2 hits on Caracosta without dying. We use Vine Whip to break Sturdy but keep the turtle out of heal range. And just when I think I'm in the clear. Stone Edge, don't crit. Okay. All right. I was too locked in to see the big picture. Aqua Jet was always going to happen here. This is bad. We are going to need to change our Seismitoad strat on Getsis. Luckily, since Embor dodged 2 blizzards, we can bring our starter in to take out Costa and the incoming Kling Clang before Zorak comes out. And in hindsight, I probably should have just break tier 2. But instead, I bring in Gyarados. And after a costly back and forth, Zorak finally goes down before we finish his Archeops with our normal Scrafty sack into Archeops finish. Where's Monet? I'm still over a minute faster, but I'm going to need to come up with a strategy on the fly. Our normal lead didn't go as planned. When Shadow Punch missed the very small range to not pick up the KO, and we lost our lead and left him in heal range, we bring Archeops in, who can 2-shot without taking any damage. Bisharp is up next, and we pivot into Embor, who continues to dodge move after move. Brick Break brings out Bouffalant next. And with Head Smash Recoil and Brick Break, the Buffalo also goes down. This is when Seismitoad comes in. And this is my opportunity to get Gyarados in. And on the switch, we of course immediately get accuracy dropped for Muddy Water. This is just getting worse. We set up 2 Dragon Dances, and Seismitoad sets up a Rain Dance, boosting our water moves. If I'm going to sweep, I need to go now. We click Aqua Tail. Seismitoad goes down. Eel comes in. Another Aqua Tail, and we hit it. Eel down. Last Mon's Hydreigon. We are faster thanks to our Dragon Dances. We just need to hit this Ice Fang. But it's not enough. Not enough damage, and now he's going to heal and delay this even more. But wait, he doesn't have another. He already used one on Koffagrigus. That's it. I finished. I completed the run, but where was Monet's time? I lost by 10 seconds. I'm in shock. So much of my run could have gone better. The Sea Gear launching, poor events on a few fights that normally would have been much faster, the 53 seconds of timer running when it should have been paused, and finally an impromptu ending Getsis fight where my strategy just went off the rails immediately. But I have so much to be proud of. Competition really brings out the best in me. Even up to the last day, I was tweaking my strategy to improve efficiency. I avoided every single optional battle that entire last run. I had such a blast talking to all these new friends about strategies and the many rivalries we developed over the past month. So many competitors were hanging out with me as I competed the very last run of this competition. And for it to come down to the wire like this, we couldn't ask for a better ending.